It's part of human nature to want to feel part of a community and feel a sense of belonging. In the last decade or so, online communities have emerged as a place for people to connect around a variety of topics, no matter where they are in the world. This year, 4chan founder Chris Moule joined Google to reportedly work on the company's social products. 4chan, an image-based bulletin board, is a site that epitomizes the good, the bad, and the absolute worst of communities of people on the internet. Then, of course, there's Reddit, which has its own share of issues and questionable content. But online communities aren't all bad. Facebook, you could say, is an online community of the entire world. Within the Facebook platform, groups let people establish their own smaller communities around things like minorities in tech, social justice, and polyamory, 3 types of groups that I'm personally involved in. Meanwhile, Slack has emerged as a way for people to accomplish basically the same thing, with people creating Slack channels to keep in touch with others with similar interests. Whether we like it or not, communities of all types of people are forming on the internet. We have Sarah Schaaf, head of community at Imgur, to talk with us about building and maintaining successful online communities.
Imgur is one of the most popular sites on the internet, touting over 150 million unique monthly visitors. Imgur's mission is to surface the most entertaining content that includes images, GIFs, and memes, of course. As head of community, Sarah Schaaf is tasked with looking after Imgur's growing user base, who refers to her as the Queen of Imgur.
Sarah, thanks for coming in today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
So, online communities, do we need to call them online communities, or are they just communities at this point?
I think there's definitely both. There's communities forming in real life, there's communities forming online, and oftentimes they merge together and they become one.
So, but are these not just real life communities then?
I think at this point people are finding their people and finding their homes online. And online communities give people a place where they can be vulnerable or where they can information share with like-minded people.
Right.
And it's sort of a place where maybe they haven't found that in real life.
Okay.
So they're able to identify online a little bit better.
And are you seeing these online communities then actually showing up in real life? And I guess by real life I mean face-to-face.
In person?
Right.
Definitely. I think a lot of times, at least for me in my personal experience, I have sort of found my people with Imgur online, and now I have met them in real life, and we've done events with them, and I hang out with them, and some of my best friends have come from that community, and the two worlds merge a lot. It's actually really cool. One of the things that I think people struggle with as far as online communities based around a product is, your product is always changing. You're always wanting to build new features, and the community that is a part of that product loves it so much. Like, again, they feel like that's its home. And so when you change something without bringing them into the fold, it's going to be really tough to bring them on board, and there might be sort of like some clash. So you definitely want to spend a ton of time in there with them, bringing them into betas, doing surveys, whatever you can to get to know those people so that they can be your ambassadors as you make change to your product.
How do you go about moderating comments and just taking into account things that might come up like harassment in those communities?
Yeah, it's definitely important to have a vision for your community as you're creating it. And if you don't want it to be a place for harassment, you should set guidelines and be the change you want to see in your community, essentially.
What are your thoughts on like verified profiles in these online communities? Because I know that at Reddit, some people think that Reddit does not have verified profiles, but some people think that that might actually be helpful in terms of ensuring that the content is a little bit more acceptable, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think that verified profiles definitely have a place in some communities. At Imgur, we actually see sort of the cloak of anonymity being used for really, really amazing things. And I think that not having that verified profile and not having to associate with your real username allows people to be really vulnerable and sort of be the best versions of themselves. Of course, we see that people being the worst versions of themselves too, but it definitely goes both ways. And if you sort of, I guess, rise up those good things that are happening and make that shine, I think that other people, it's a snowball effect a little bit.
What impact on society do you see these online communities having?
Let's say you want to find a cause that you really care about. You can find those people online, and it's sort of like with sharing the information with the like-minded people. So there's this thing that happened on Imgur where a World War II veteran passed away and he didn't have any family, and the obituary showed up in the newspaper. And so somehow it rose up on Imgur, like, hey, this guy doesn't have any family. We should go to the funeral. And I think like 600 people that didn't know this guy just showed up to the funeral to support what he had done in his life. And it's just like those really cool, interesting things that probably wouldn't have happened if there wasn't an online community to foster it.
You work at Imgur, you said that you're a part of that community. What other kinds of online communities are you participating in?
I really like gaming communities. I think there's a really cool, raw authenticity happening in those. And my favorite thing about online communities is when you're in them and then something else happens that isn't necessarily in line with the online community. So, for example, at Imgur, if you're browsing interesting images, then you meet online and like do something cool, like just that trade-off. And I think that happens a lot in gaming communities. I also just discovered dog spotting on Facebook, and
what is that?
It is a community.
Looking at pictures of dogs.
It's a community where people are just out in their everyday life and they take pictures of interesting dogs they see and share them.
Okay,
so
I can actually maybe
spot
get
dogs.
into that.
It's really, I highly recommend it.
Great. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Bullish airs every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, and you can find it here on TechCrunch.com.